Hey gamers, today I'm going to review the X-Men United all-in Kickstarter, starting with the base game. Let's check it out. The gameplay for X-Men United is very similar to Marvel United. I'm not really going to go over the rules or setup. Everything's basically the same. You still get a deck here, but this time some decks will start with a starting card here that you'll start with in your hand at first. There are also some decks in the expansions that come with a bottom card. Not many, but just a few. But some will come with 1, 2, or none starting cards. And if so, make sure not to shuffle those out, shuffle the rest of the deck, but keep this one in your hand. Game also comes with a way to play as someone as the villain. If so, you'll play with these super villain cards, while the heroes would play with these superhero cards. And like last time, there are some challenge cards to make the game harder if you want to. There's a new color here, purple. Purple means they can be the main villain, or they can switch, and they also have a hero deck and can play with the heroes in other scenarios as well. Each scenario will tell you if there's a special setup on the back here before you flip it over and give out all their stats there. Magneto's special is you would replace the rescue missions with this one, the Use Cerebro card. And using that, just put some different icons there on the board, and it's just one of the missions that you've got to unlock. There are other ones too, even though I have the plastic. This is just the cardboard. I never punched them out, but if you play a card that delays the villain's turn, you'll put one of these to remind you that the villain is delayed from playing a card. The hunted token is for Sabretooth. There's something with him. And the Senator Kelly is for Mystique there. So she has her own scenario as well. And basically that's the game. Final thoughts, what do I think about the game? Well, I don't have to show you the gameplay because it plays just like Marvel United, and I knew that going in. Now, I love Marvel United. It's one of my favorite games. I think it got in my top 30 this past year, and it's so much fun. I played it through over and over again. Wanted to play it through again when I heard this came in, but this thing came in so fast I didn't have time to play through this one again. I love this one. I was a little worried. I say, am I just buying more of the same? Meaning, is it going to feel very similar to all the other stuff I've seen before? And playing the base game alone, I'll go through each one of the expansions in a minute, but playing the base game alone, no, it feels a lot different. The villains feel different. Magneto not as much, but Sabretooth, having that hunted token at you, knowing that he's the one, he's going to eventually kill you. He will eventually kill you in the game, and that sucks, and you're scared to death of him. But that's really fun. And then Mystique, Senator Kelly. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. If he gets one hit, he's dead. And you can take the hit for him, but that's going to hurt you. And you always got to protect him because a lot of times there's cards that Mystique can play that will have him wander off. You're like, oh no, we got to go pick him up again. So that was really intense. And then Juggernaut, who is unlike, I thought he was going to be just like Rhino. He's unlike the Rhino. He just gives one hit on anyone he lands on or passes through, which is thematic as well. So all those are things that we have not seen in any previous version of Marvel United. So I was very happy about this. Now, what if you're someone who you don't want to get all those Kickstarter games? Matt, should I just get the base game? Sure, if you love X-Men, this is good, and it is different from the base game of Marvel United. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. Now, I'm going to go through each one of the expansions and in order of what I like them, my least favorite to my most favorite. So let's start off with the Phoenix 5. Here is the Phoenix 5, the 5 villains you'll be playing. What you'll be doing is you'll be shuffling their threat cards, getting rid of 2 and replacing them with these Phoenix threat cards, and each deck will have 2 Phoenix cards associated with it. You also have a new hero named Hope. A new objective here is to train Hope. This would replace the thugs, even though you can still beat up thugs in it. But you also have to train her. That's one of your missions as well, if you so choose to use Hope in the game. And then what you're going to do, you can shuffle these or put these in a particular order, and it tells you what the special setup would be for each one on the back. And you put this at the top of the player board, and then you'd play through each one at a time. Each villain would take a shot. The only difference is, and it says it right here, +1 per previously defeated villain. So Namor would be 4 in a 4-player game. Magic would be 5. Colossus would be 6, and so on and so forth, as whoever you're battling last will probably be the strongest. And basically that's the game. Final thoughts. What do I think about the game? Well, it's all right. It's all right. First off, I am not familiar about this storyline. I do not know about the Phoenix Five or Hope or anything. I know that it doesn't feel different than anything I played with Marvel United. And so when I played this one, I was like, well, and it could be that maybe also I didn't know the storyline either, but it just doesn't seem to offer us anything new. Sure, every villain gets stronger as you face them. So the last villain's always going to be the hardest. We look through the cards at first and say, let's stack them in a certain order to see who'd be the most dangerous. It didn't matter. Whoever we had the first and second time we played, I think Colossus or Namor or Cyclops or someone, they were super hard at the end. So it almost doesn't matter who you get. They're going to be super hard just because they're so powerful and hard to hit. It's fine to play through, but again, it's just nothing. The reason why it's my least favorite, and I'll play it again, but it's just nothing new from what we've seen before. And some of these other expansions, they give a lot of stuff new. So let's look at the next one, which is X-Force. What's new with the X-Force expansion? Of course, some characters. Strife is the villain here. It also comes with 4 extra tiles. This is a special tile here. If a superhero has, they can't pass over this if they've already cleared off the threat here. And each one of these with the yellow hand are bad things that will happen to the player. So they're not rewards, they're basically penalties. Now, if you have all the expansions, tiles like Morlock Tunnels and Murder World is brought back for other villains in the game. But basically, that's X-Force. Final thoughts, what do I think about X-Force? Well, I love X-Force. Used to read the comic book back in the day, so I'm very familiar with the characters and the villain here. I like how the tiles are super hard when you clear the threat, and you have to stop on them when you pass through them. That really hurts your gameplay. A lot of people are just waiting for Strife to come to us, which, you know, ate up a lot of the cards and almost gave him a chance to win. So they make this one really hard to play through, and that extra tile is something nice. It's something neat. It's something different. Is it something big? No, it's a small change. It's a small change from anything we've seen. And so that's why this gets my second least favorite, even though I love X-Force, I'll play it all the time. All right, let's do the next one, which is the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. The Horsemen of the Apocalypse expansion comes with all these sweet minis here. As you see, Apocalypse can also be played as a good guy too. And the game has this in the center of it for the first stage, and in this order, famine, war, pestilence, and death. You're playing each one of these characters who are trying to achieve their own little mission. Now, depending on how many players, if it's a 2-player game, you'll be throwing out 2 of these cards from the deck. If it's a 4-player game or 3-player game, you'll be removing 1 of these cards from the deck. But they all have a little master plan that you're trying to foil within just a few turns. Now, the only difference is whether you're able to, you can't defeat them in this first round, but if you're able to foil, let's say, war, then he'll come into the regular game in a weakened state. If you can't defeat his plan, if he gets away with it, then he comes into a full, unweakened state. And they do have some extra tiles here. And of course, once the first round is done and you've gone through all 3 of these, whether you foiled them or not, you'll remove these. There are some bonuses you'll get. Each symbol, I think it's like a move, a punch, a star, and then a wild if you can defeat them. So you'll have some extra tokens to fight Apocalypse there. But Apocalypse has this apocalyptic track here marked by this red cube. Now it also says, hey, once the survival track overpasses that Apocalypse track, you win the game. You're like, what's the survival track? Well, it's basically the same track, except you're using the cube from the base game, survival tracker there. And what you'll do is, whether they're in full or weak status, you'll put them around the board like so on each one of the boards. And in Apocalypse's deck sometime, he will show, Apocalypse deck says, hey, move the first 2 available in this order. So if death is not available, then you'll move war and pestilence or whatever, or famine. And so basically you're trying to move around the deck. You're trying to do things to get survival points here, and the rules will tell you what gives you survival points and what will move his Apocalypse track. The cards will tell you that. And if your survival track passes this red cube, then the heroes win. Final thoughts, what do I think about the game? Well, this one's slightly more different. You're having to play all 4 of them in that first round where either you're going to get it or you're not. The 2 times we played, the first time we were kind of confused, and A few of them got through, some of them we defeated, and the second time we defeated all 4, and so they ended up on their weak side. Now, even though they're on their weak side, that game is still stinking hard. Armageddon and the 4 Horsemen, man, all of them, it's just pure chaos as they're running around the board, just smacking you left and right. This one is a hard one to win, but it should be, right? I mean, you don't call it the Horsemen of the Apocalypse for nothing there. It is a little bit different than what we've seen before, plus the intensity level. This is going to be like expert play when you bring this one out. It is a good expansion. I do love it. As you see, we're climbing up here. I'm going to say more nicer things about these as I move through it, but it's a fine expansion. Now let's go to First Class. On top of all these minis, the First Class expansion also comes with 3 new tiles. Your villains are going to be twofold in Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Iceman will have these tokens here. I have the plastic tokens, so I don't use these. But basically how they work is when Iceman plays a certain card, he can put one of the tokens here, while other players can just basically skate over it for one move. So if I had one move, I could glide over this one to move to this one. Just helps the players move around faster in the game. The coolest thing about this is they have this extra danger room tile that you'll attach to any one of the tiles you want to. And once that threat card is cleared, you have your choice in taking the top reward or the bottom reward. If you take the bottom reward, you get to pull from these little training cards. Training cards can be one-time only special abilities or permanent special abilities. And basically, that's the game. Final thoughts. What do I think about First Class? Well, I'll be honest, this was the one I was the least excited about. I played it first. I remember I was like, let's get this one out of the way. This does not look fun. When they announced this one in one of the Kickstarter stretch goals or whatever, I was like, I don't want this. I bought it because I had to go all in, but I was like, this doesn't look that good. Boy, was I wrong. This is where the series really starts making its difference, pulling away from everything we've seen before. Not only do you have to fight 2 villains, which is nice, but that training center. That's a really cool idea. Do you take the top reward or the bottom reward? And you don't want to be sitting there just gathering cards and trying to get all these great permanent abilities, because the longer you take to defeat Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, the worse you're going to be. Scarlet Witch hits someone on her square in both adjacent squares, and Quicksilver's like Juggernaut. He hits you when he passes you through, and there is a number 6 on Quicksilver. There's a few 6 cards where he'll hit you every time, and that's awful. So you can't stay in the training or danger room training forever trying to power up here. But the characters, like the Iceman throwing the little ice things to make you move faster around the board, really love that. Would never play this one without Iceman. I wouldn't play a Marvel Girl, Cyclops, Angel, and Beast game. No, Iceman has to be in this game. I think he's cool just for that reason alone. So this one, surprisingly, a really good one. Really enjoyed it. So let's look at the next one, Days of Future Past. The Days of Future Past expansion come with these beautiful giant-sized Sentinels that, I mean, just dwarf the regular players in the game, as they should. They have their little Roman numerals on them. This one's like Roman numeral 2. There's Roman numeral 1, 2, and 3. Nimrod is also the villain in this expansion here. And what you're going to do is you're going to give each player one of these 3, and that means that's the Sentinel that's assigned to them throughout the game to attack them. Now, that means if you're playing 4 players, one player will not have a Sentinel attached to them, and that person will just move a random Sentinel in that case. So one person gets away scot-free. They have this little Sentinel card to tell you what those little rules I just explained, but on the back, whenever it's the Sentinel's turn to move, it looks at the last 2 hero cards that were played, and according to what symbols were on it, or special actions, special effects, something will happen. They'll move, they'll hit, they'll add certain people on them, they'll recover their health, or even Nimrod can go up on this villainous plot track. And that's not what you want to have, because as Nimrod moves on, once you defeat the 3 Sentinels, that's when Nimrod appears on the board, and then you have to work hard to defeat Nimrod at the end before he gets to 15. If he gets to 15, you lose. And basically, that is the expansion. Final thoughts. What do I think about the game? Well, I told you First Class was the one I was least excited about. The one I was most excited about was this one. As you see, it's like a mid-carder here. But these big Sentinel pieces that are designed to follow one of you. And so they're getting closer. And you start taking into account, like, okay, what do I play? I don't want to play this card because that would trigger this. it really changes the way you play the game, and it's awesome. And trying to defeat the Sentinels aren't necessarily hard, but how you play the game could give Nimrod a big advantage later on. If you start playing special abilities to take out these 3 Sentinels really quick, then Nimrod's going to get pretty close to his goal by the time you get to him. It may be too late. I love how they put this expansion together and how it really does feel like a different game. And that's a lot to say when you have so many expansions to basically the same game. All right, so let's look at the next one. This one is Deadpool. The Deadpool expansion comes with a game where you can play him as the villain or as the hero with Lady Deadpool. If you're playing him as the villain, it's basically just a kooky little game where you can never kill Deadpool. If you kill him down, he comes back up to health. You just delay his turn by 1. And he goes every 2 hero cards that get played. And basically, you're just trying to get points by clearing some of his stupid threats, defeating thugs, rescuing people, and as you make it through his entire deck, at the end of the game, see how many points you score to win. He suggests 50. Anything above 50 is a good score. It can be done. But when Deadpool kills you, you are out of the game, and Deadpool is very dangerous at times. It does come with a new tile, which is Deadpool's apartment, which basically does nothing, just lets you draw 2 cards. The villain here that you can play is Bob, as you see he's in purple, so he can also be played as a ally too. And the other thing it has here is the Deadpool challenge. Basically, this guy who rides around, he sits on one of the tiles. When a hero ends their turn on that tile, you may flip over the Deadpool Chaos deck. It can be good or bad, it just depends. And this goes with basically just any expansion, including this one. Final thoughts, what do I think about the game? Well, I may be a little biased, and thinking about it now, I may put this behind First Class. The Deadpool challenge is fun. It's fun. You have to say ouch every time he hits you, or it's a bonus damage. And the board's a little funny. I wish Deadpool was a little bit more serious, that we could take him as a serious villain, but it's Deadpool. You can't take him seriously. So it's a different, fun way to play the game. The Chaos Challenge, Deadpool Chaos Challenge, we played with it once. It's a little annoying when you're trying to you're trying to get a game plan together and he just ruins everything. Of course, that's the point of him. But the one that makes this box shine is Bob. Bob is a fantastic character, villain. He's saving up for his retirement plan, and every one of his cards are like main villains like Red Skull and Green Goblin and Kingpin and everyone. And they all do something bad, and it's almost like the Sinister Six as you're going through trying to fight all these. Bob, all it takes is 1 hit to take him out, but you got to get all the other threats out of the way, because those threats combined, maybe you can leave 1 or 2 on the board, but you want to get those threats done quickly, and of course that makes Bob play faster cards too. So I like how that's designed to say, hey, let's make them go get those threats, really kill off all those threats, because you really need to get rid of 4 to even breathe in that game. But then that gives Bob the ability to play cards faster, and then the game is really on as you're going around either rescuing people or punching thugs to try to unlock the spot where you can punch Bob back. But it's really balanced in that way, and that's the reason why I put this game a little above the other 2, even though, to be fair, if I keep playing it, it could slink behind First Class. All right, so let's go to the next one, the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four expansion, of course, comes with the superhero team. It comes with Dr. Doom, who can also be played as a good guy, too. Comes with a sweet Silver Surfer. He's already silver there. And, of course, Super Skrull is one of the villains. It comes with 4 extra tiles you can play in the game. Of course, here are your 2 villains here. They do different things. Doom uses Doom bots instead of thugs. And the special rule with him is, if ever there's a Doom bot, even though you can attack Doom, you must kill the Doom bots first. And usually wherever Doom is, he keeps swarms of these around him. So you may get a couple of hits on Doom, but most of them will be going to hit those Doom bots. The special thing about Super Skrull is, when it's his turn to play, if he lands on you, he hits you, and then he looks at the last icon of the last hero played, and he does something in there. So his powers are always changing, which goes with his character. That's the Fantastic Four expansion. Final thoughts, what do I think about the game? Well, this was the last expansion that was mentioned in the Kickstarter. And people were like, oh, they're not going to do a Season 3. And I have an idea of what they're going to do for Season 3. But, when I saw it, I was like, oh, this must have been something that they were writing up for Marvel United, but said, you know what, let's save this for the next Kickstarter. And so I thought maybe it was just an afterthought. It may not be as good as all the X-Men stuff. And here it is, ranking them up the highest. Man, the villains, Doom, the Doom bots. How smart is that? You have to defeat a Doom bot. And there's usually always a Doom bot wherever Doom is. So you could throw 3 punches at Doom, but only 2 of them land because you got to kill that one Doom bot. Or none of them land because you got to kill all these Doom bots first. I really like that. Super Scroll is very similar to the Sentinels, where depending on what card you played will determine what type of power he gets. And that's very thematic too. Of course, all the characters here are really fun. They got some really good cards here. This is, there's a Fantastic Four card I didn't show you, where if you play it, you put an icon up there that other players can use because you're working as a team. And so anyone can grab that certain token, that if they really need it, they can grab those tokens. There are cards that will trigger events on the Fantastic Four card, but each team member can throw up a token up there for the other ones to use. I really like that. Again, something new and fresh that we haven't seen in any of the Marvel United, and that makes it an excellent, excellent expansion. All right, let's go on to Gold Team. The Gold Team expansion comes with 4 extra tiles and a new way to play the game. You're going to divide the players into teams of 2 or 3, put rings around their base to let everyone know who's on what team. And as you see, the goals have now been split. You're going to use this new divider here and have different goals set out. And basically, it's the same goal, just split in 2 for each team. What you're going to do, and you're going to choose your teams from any one that comes in this box here or on any of the other sets that you have. Make up your 2 teams. The moment one person completes one of theirs, let's say blue team completed this one, okay? Now they have these little unlock tokens, but what we do is we just flip it over when they've defeated something. Okay, when that happens, now the hero, the villain is under pressure and starts playing cards more often. Now, how does the gameplay go on this? Well, you play 1 villain card at first, then taking turns, each team is going to play 3 cards each. So it'd be villain, then blue, then yellow, then blue, then yellow, then blue, then yellow, then villain again. But once someone, doesn't have to be both teams, just one team or the other, completes one of their missions, then it goes villain, blue, yellow, villain. Because now the villain's coming in a little bit more often, even though yellow hasn't completed one of theirs yet. And the same could be said, let's say yellow comes back and they complete 2 objectives. Well, now yellow is the only person who can hit the villain. However, blue team, they cannot try to hit the villain until they complete one of these other goals. All right, so whenever you flip over cards, it only benefits that team, and you can only have those abilities for that specific team. And of course, the team who beats the villain at the end wins. Now, this villain they have is Sebastian Shaw, as you see. Whoa, he is super weak. Well, his special rule is every hero can only hit him once per turn, and in exchange, he does 2 damage on you in return automatic. Ouch, that's really bad. To remind you when whose turn is it for each round, because of course it'll start off blue, yellow, and then round 2 will start off yellow, blue. To remind you of that, you can flip this coin over to here, to here, to here, to here, to remember, hey, who's going first this round? And that's the game. Final thoughts, what do I think about the game? Well, when I heard this on Kickstarter, I was like, okay, player versus player or 2-on-2, I get it. Everyone's trying to, or maybe you open it up for 6 players or whatnot. That you're playing it and trying to get to see who can defeat the villain first. When we played it, I fell in love with it. I say, man, this is a way to play. This is a really fun way. You almost want to take in every villain and beat them this way. It's really fun way to play the game. Totally changes the way you think about things, who you pick on your team. You want a good balance of everyone. There's a lot more teamwork going on because you're trying to be the other team. The unlock tokens I don't use. Again, I just flip those tiles over, because if you put an unlock token on it, you can't really tell who's unlocked what. Sebastian Shaw in this, when I saw he had low health, I went, well, this will be easy. But then we read his special ability. He hits you back twice. Yikes! So you don't want the same superhero hitting him twice, or he'll knock himself out, and the KO is really bad. So really neat idea, which is why it's so high up this list. But it's not the highest one. Let's look at the next one, Blue Team. So Blue Team relatively has the same thing as Gold Team. It has some different tiles. It has the same divisions, same rings, and of course different players that you can play as. And Mr. Sinister is the villain. And what Mr. Sinister does, his special ability is you will divide these little DNA tokens among the players evenly. And his special effect is that he will pull you closer to him. If he lands on your tile or even if he doesn't, he moves all the players one tile closer to him. If he lands, or you land, I should say, on Mr. Sinister, then he will collect 1 of your DNA. When all your DNA are gone on one X-Men, that X-Men can no longer have, or can no longer use any special abilities on their cards anymore, because they can use the bottom icon here, but they can't use the special ability anymore. And then Mr. Sinister wins only when he collects all the DNA. And basically that's the game. Final thoughts. What do I think about the game? Well, of course, Blue Team I love because it has one of my favorite, or my favorite X-Men ever is Gambit. So I love Gambit, I love Rogue. These are 2 great ones. Psylocke and Jubilee are fine too. They're from the cartoon, as is Mr. Sinister. This is super popular. It plays just like Gold Team, but just with different scenarios, different tiles, and of course Mr. Sinister, who I think is awesome. Those DNA tiles, as he's sucking you in to his tile to try to grab your DNA. It's almost, he's not giving you hits, he's taking your DNA, which makes him super scary. I saw people run in terror of Mr. Sinister, scream when he pulled them to him to take one of their precious DNA, because then, or they play their special cards first off so they wouldn't get, because they know I've only got 1 more DNA left. Mr. Sinister's going to take me on the next turn, so I may as well spend this one, even though I should save it for later. Really changes the game. Really brilliant addition. My favorite out of the base game expansions. All right, so finally, let's look at the Kickstarter exclusives. And of course, the Kickstarter extra comes with plenty of minis here. Villains in heroes, and then nothing but heroes down here in blue. It also has certain things for certain villains as well. Sauron can hypnotize you. Mojo has some people taken for prisoner. Multiple Man has these tiles here. Basically, the setup will tell you what each one of those tiles do. And of course, they come with cards and decks for each one of these. Final thoughts. What do I think about all this junk here? It's not junk, but I mean, you got Alpha Flight in here. You got some great heroes that do some some cool, interesting things. I think the Marvel United Kickstarter box was a little bit better as heroes go, because there were a lot of different types of heroes, where this one had a few different types and a lot of them were generic. Some were unique, but not all of them were like the other Kickstarter box was. As for villains, there's a lot of interesting villains here. Some harder than others, depending. Arcade is really, I thought, oh man, he's gonna be an easy one. No, he's hard. Mojo is really interesting too. That's another interesting scenario. Onslaught is hard, like I knew he would be, but not as hard as we all thought he would. We were very intimidated when we played Onslaught, but we beat him on our first and second try, I think. So he didn't pretend. He was still a threat, but not that big of a threat. One that is a huge threat is Phoenix, Dark Phoenix. Holy cow, she'll flip over tiles and end the game by flipping over all the tiles. And that is brutal, especially if you can't complete. I think the first time we played it, we couldn't complete our second objective because there weren't enough tiles or people out on the tiles for us to help save or punch in the face. We got the clear threats thing, and all those threats you want to clear because all of them are really bad too. So Phoenix is basically X-Men United's Thanos, but Thanos is way, way more powerful. And so is Green Goblin. I think Green Goblin is still the second hardest character, but there are some really hard ones in here. Really wonderful minis, of course, as always. I should say the option to play the villain mode, I don't really care for. We never played that as someone playing as the villain. We just didn't think that was interesting. So I didn't much care for that. And the other thing that really disappointed me when looking at this and some of the other expansions here is, man, there's a lot of emphasis on getting those plans, the little threat tokens, the threat cards. I would say 90% of them are stars. They're all stars. There's hardly any mixes or... I remember there was some in the base set here that had punches or some that had arrows, which I thought was really neat. The green move arrow tokens. And there's hardly any of that in here. I think Deadpool is the only one that has one. He has I think it's called running in place. It's just a bunch of running tokens because he's silly stupid. But other than that, no one else. Everyone had stars, 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 stars. You had to get stars on everything. And that was a little bit too repetitive. Now, mind you, those are the only negative things I have to say about this. Other than that, This game is amazing. I'm so glad I went all in on it. It is great. I got the cardboard locations, which I use in my games. They're nice and thick and durable. I've got the plastic tokens, which I've never punched out any of this cardboard. I will never use cardboard again. Those plastic tokens are sweet. So going in the map too, I mean, I have the play mat too, and going all in was definitely worth it. I think Season 3 will not be Marvel. I think it'll be a new Season 1 with DC characters, because Spin Master also owns those rights as well. But we shall see, right? Anyway, gamers, that's all the time I have for now. Until next time, you know what to do. Schnickety snarl.